Good Monday evening, everybody. I'm Dan Murrell, here with Lon Harris.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Charting with Dan. We're here to break down everything that happened at the box office this past weekend. Some stuff, big week on the small per theater side, big week on the big screen multiplex side, Lon. A lot to talk about this.
So much going on. We're getting into the year end. I feel like it's finally here. The momentum, the award season, holidays.
It's a sprint from here.
Right, yeah.
Well, the first question that we can talk about that we posed last week when we were talking about Joker, Lon, was: is it the second week drop going to be closer to what we often see with an event film with your standard comic book film, or is it going to be closer to what we see with more of an adult-oriented film, more of an adult-driven film? And we got our answer because Joker held up far more than even the analysts had expected. Over $55 million in its second weekend. That's a drop just over 40%. For a movie that opened close to $100 million domestically, that's a fantastic hold. And it goes to show what kind of business this is driving, which appears to be both a combination of repeat business and the fact that it is so talked about. It is such a topic of discussion that it's driving people in its second week, I think, perhaps, that missed in week one to go see it in the second week.
That's what I was going to say. The fact that the second week it's in release, it got the centerpiece sketch on Saturday Night Live was a full-on parody. Like, that's to show you how much the conversation is being driven, the national conversation being driven by this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing, is a lot of people who probably would have not gone to see Joker at all theatrically and would have waited for VOD are going to see it because they're hearing about it and they want to have their own take.
Yeah, it's seeped into the pop culture.
Definitely.
It is this weird hybrid because it's seeped into the pop culture much like an Aquaman or a Black Panther would, but at the same time, it's its own sort of spin, its own twist on it.
I think it's, people go to the office, everybody's talking about it, they feel like, I want to have a thought about this Joker movie, I want to be able to participate, and so they're going to see it, even if ordinarily maybe they would have waited or not bothered.
We talked about last week that Joker had set a record for the opening weekend in October. Well, it set another record. It set the second weekend record for October. It blew past Gravity's record this past weekend fairly easily as the best second weekend performance for an October release. There you see The Martian, number 3, Venom, number 4, Puss in Boots.
Wow.
Puss in Boots, number 5 there. People love those Shrek spinoffs back in the yonder days of the early aughts.
They had a heyday.
Shrek had the Midas touch back.
Oh yeah, no, Shrek certainly had a time period where he was large and in charge.
Yeah, and then if you're looking at the Batman franchise or Bat-related franchise, percentage-wise, Joker, the 4th best hold of any film in that group of films. Wow. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which did not do well. Right. This is again where you have to take everything into context because percentage-wise, it had the best hold. It actually increased its audience from week 1 to week 2, but it did not do well theatrically, but by percentage it had the best performance, actually going up 18.2%. That was around the Christmas holidays.
It opened, nobody went to see it, and then the few people who had seen it started saying, like, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
maybe that's got a second week
it
bump.
Didn't take much. You'll see there Batman 89 number 2. Lon, we talked about this, how the release strategy and the way that movies performed was a little bit different even back just 30 years ago.
Sure.
Just 30 years ago.
Only 30
years ago, and that it was a bit longer, and you're seeing that only a 25% drop from week 1 to week 2. Then Lego Batman, which was an early year release and a big hit. Then we have Joker right there, 41.9%. So the second best drop for any live action film in the Batman universe. And then Batman Begins there at 43.4%. Again, this is an R-rated film. Did not have the luxury of a summer release, of a holiday release. So just another testament to the fact that even with its tone, even with its rating, it's holding its own right up there with the other Batman films of all genre and rating.
Yeah, I mean, and I think if you look at those other films on there, Joker does have, it's got this. It's an award contender movie. It's a adult movie that adults are talking about, that critics are talking about, that people are writing about it. There's an else going on. And I think that's probably what doesn't hit a lot of these other movies. I mean, Batman Begins, obviously, Nolan doing a Batman movie was very exciting. fans wanted to go out, but it doesn't hit a lot of these other audiences that are hearing about Joker.
Well, that's what I was reading a little bit, was this was not a movie. This would seem to be the opposite of what some people would call a quote-unquote a 4-quadrant hit.
Yeah.
But because of the conversation it's driving, it's actually turning out to be that way, in that you're getting a younger audience who's perhaps there more for the comic book movie reason, but you're also attracting an older audience who's there because of the prestige, as you mentioned, perhaps because of the controversy or in spite of it. So it is actually driving business in a strange way from a lot of different audiences.
Yeah, people want to see this Joaquin performance. It's probably going to get nominated. And so, I mean, I think that's driving a lot of this.
Well, let's look at the rest of the top 5. At number 2, and a much more of a comfortable number 2, again, than a lot of people had expected, was The Addams Family, the animated film. This is the third Addams Family film to hit theaters. $30 million in second place. Now, if you don't adjust for inflation, that is the highest opening for an Addams Family film. But if you do adjust for inflation, that puts it basically right at where Addams Family Values opened, well below the first Addams Family live-action film, which adjusted for inflation opened just over $50 million.
Yeah, this was unexpected to me, because I had sort of, when you first started seeing the trailers, it's like, who is this for? It looks like it's for young children, but they're too young to remember the Addams Family.
Maybe so, but their parents aren't. And it's funny, you know, we look at this sometimes and things like the Addams Family, and you see a movie and you're like, oh, why? But I was at the theater this weekend and was on my way up the escalator to another film, and I saw some parents there with a couple of young kids, and the young kid was jumping around going da 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 da. And it's like, that's why. That's why they do it. Is you now this is what, the third, fourth generation that you're bringing into the Addams Family.
I was just talking the other day to somebody who didn't even realize it had been a cartoon. They thought it was just the old TV show and then the 90s movies. It's like, this is a franchise that goes back to the 50s, the 40s.
I mean, comic strips.
Charles Addams. I don't know when he was first drawing the Addams, but a long time ago. It just it translates down through the generations. It's really impressive.
Not so impressive as Gemini Man. I mean, Gemini Man was handily beaten by a 50-plus-year-old cartoon franchise. This was a budgeted, reportedly $138 million plus from Ang Lee. There's no other way you can really spin it. Disappointing opening in third place with just over $20 million. Let's break this down a little bit. First of all, let's look at Ang Lee as far as his wide openings. Now, the difference being Ang Lee has not had, this is only his fourth film that's opened in wide release, meaning week 1 it's in wide release. These are his top 5 performers. However, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Brokeback Mountain had a couple of weeks of limited release before. These are their wide release opening weekends. But as you can see, Hulk easily, even without adjusting for inflation, Ang Lee's highest opening film. Then Life of Pi, Gemini Man there at number 3, and then Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Brokeback Mountain at number 4 and number 5. Of course, the difference being those are smaller films, certainly not budgeted as high as Gemini Man was.
Yeah, he's had a very interesting career. It really kind of seems to go in phases almost. There was the making films in China, and coming over here to America and making these interesting and strange, somber drama kind of films. And now he seems determined to be our generation's James Cameron, where every new film he's moving the technology goalposts further down.
Well, I mean, James Cameron is our generation's James Cameron.
James Cameron's my generation's James Cameron, maybe the younger generation's James
We'll see. This is his second movie in a row where he's been experimenting with this high frame rate. Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, which was budgeted around $40 million, and almost no one went to see. Now Gemini Man over 3 times the budget despite that, and it looks like another financial disappointment. We'll talk about worldwide, where it could perhaps make up some ground in a minute, but this is now the second film where he's really heavily invested in this 120 frames per second high frame rate thing, driving people out, and the audience interest for it right now just doesn't really seem to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are going to see it on traditional 2D movie screen, like standard projection anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, it really feels like you got to nail the movie first.
Yeah.
You have to make a movie that people want to go see, that they're interested in, that has a core, story that people want to hear. Then you can worry about the bells and the whistles and the high it makes sense when it's something like Peter Jackson doing it on The Hobbit. I know a lot of people didn't like the way it worked, but at least that was a movie he'd already sold you on coming to see that movie.
Right.
Middle Earth, The Hobbit, these are worlds that people want to explore. Gemini Man, I feel like they're not doing even the little bit to sell me on what is the Gemini Man.
I mean, I liked the concept. I think that, critics were shown the movie in the high frame rate format,
Right.
and the reviews were not good. Mine was largely influenced by the format. I read many others that were also largely influenced. So we have to review the version of the film that we're shown, and that's what Ang Lee wanted presented. I think perhaps I agree with you in the sense that perhaps the movie should be presented on its own first, and then if people choose to invest in these high-tech bells and whistles, then they can. I know the hope is to make it as integral to the movie-going experience as 3D was for Avatar with James Cameron.
Right.
But I just think that it's honestly a very hit or miss technology. I think it's going to put off as many people or more than are engaged by it, and I think that I don't know how you go about changing that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, a lot of filmmakers have this idea that this is how we're going to save the theatrical experience. It's going to be, well, we'll have to technologically create something you can only do in a theater that you can't do at home. This would be an example of that. I just don't feel like the interest is there from people. Like, I think 3D, at least as a gimmick, there's some level of like, oh, the movie's coming out at me. This one, I just don't feel like they've sold us on what high frame rate can do.
Well, I want to take a look at Will Smith, because this was not a big domestic hit for Will Smith.
No, he's had some ups and downs.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to take a look at that. So these are Will Smith domestic openings. Now, these are adjusted for inflation, so to try to put them on a somewhat even ground. And yeah, you can see, now these are the ones that he was credited on. This is not something like a Jersey Girl or where he makes a cameo or something. These are Will Smith is up there. You could argue that Made in America perhaps is a Ted Danson with Goldberg. That's fine.
He's in there. It's a major role.
But as you can see, Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black, and then you have in the mid 2000s, late 90s to mid 2000s, you have look, these are openings. These are not final. These are openings, but you got Men in Black 2, $80 million. Bad Boys 2, he's opening. iRobot open. Shark Tale open. Hitch opens. Pursuit of Happiness, it's lower compared to the others, but keep in mind that's a drama. Still opens at almost $40 million. A big opening with I Am Legend. A big opening with Hancock. But after Hancock is where I think, as you can see, it gets a little bit more spotty. You've got Men in Black 3 in there. Of course, Suicide Squad and Aladdin, a big opening for this year. But there was something that I was curious about that I wanted to look at, and I think that it speaks to when we talk about stars opening movies, and Will Smith, I think, is still a huge star.
One of the biggest.
But how they perform when you take away franchises. So here's the same chart, but taking away sequels and remakes. And I think it goes to show you again just how distinct the difference has been, particularly now if you look past Hancock. Those are films that are not sequels. Those are films that are not a remake of another movie. And you see that Will Smith has not been opening quote-unquote original concept films in the way that he used to. Even if you look at a movie like iRobot or Shark Tale or Hitch or even The Pursuit of Happiness, he was still opening those films even though that they weren't reliant on on a previous film or a remake of another movie. Now, I Am Legend, some people might say, like, well, that's kind of
it's based on the Richard Matheson story.
You can always go in and say, like, well, and quibble a little bit. But I think really,
iRobot, Isaac Asimov inspired that.
But looking at 7 Pounds, After Earth Focus, Concussion, Collateral Beauty, and now Gemini Man, these are all films that opened sub $40 million. Will Smith's never had a string like that, even when you take out all the franchises and sequels. And this is the thing. It's just like, it is harder, it would seem, for Will Smith and probably a lot of other stars to open a film absent an existing IP or an existing franchise.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to notice on that chart, or that I notice when I'm looking at that chart, is a lot of the big successes also come with, it's either a concept that has a lot of innate appeal, or he's part of a larger ensemble that or world that are exciting people. So, Bad Boys has got Martin Lawrence. Independence Day, a huge cast, alien invasion. Men in Black, he's got Tommy Lee Jones. It's also a high concept sort of thing. There's a lot of those kinds of stories in the beginning, but then you get more recent and it's After Earth. It's him and his son Jaden, but that's it. Focus is him and Margot Robbie, and that's really Concussion is really a biopic that's very focused on him. Gemini Man is Will Smith starring alongside himself. himself. And I think that he's just, and it's a thing that happens. It's not, I'm not like trying to say it's his ego or whatever. Like, it's a thing that happens when you become a big enough star that the movies are all sort of wrapped around you and you're at the center. But I don't know if that's necessarily working for him. I feel like stuff like Suicide Squad, maybe not necessarily that movie, but stuff like that where he's inserting himself and doing what he can do within this larger movie might work out for him and get audiences excited about going to Will Smith movies.
And I know a lot of people say, like, well, yeah, no, duh, of course the ones without franchises are going to be lower. But the thing that really interests me is, like, particularly in the last 10 years, because he was opening films that, like Pursuit of Happiness.
Sure.
That were not...
No, purely on the strength of being Will Smith.
So I think that's where you're seeing some struggle, and why a lot of times you are seeing actors attaching themselves to franchises. Because it is getting harder now. I still think, and I've said it before, that there are some movie stars that can open movies, but as there's more and more competition, I think even that power may gradually start to wane a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it used to be a movie star opens a movie, that's literally all you need. You're like, Pacino's in this. And Pacino fans are like, well, I go see things with Pacino.
Hooah!
Yeah, that's a good example.
Ticket, please.
Great example of a movie, Son of a Woman, that a lot of people went to see just because it was Pacino. And I think that audiences have just kind of adjusted, and now you can still do that if you are a big movie star and it's a role that feels right for your persona. Like, I think Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is an example of an actor that people are excited about opening a movie themselves. But I think if you put Ryan Reynolds in a rom-com, maybe not, like rom-com would still work. Put Ryan Reynolds in like a paranoia thriller, I don't know if you're going to get that same effect. People want to see him doing the Ryan Reynolds thing.
Well, we'll find out a little bit more, because Will Smith it was a few years since he made a movie, but he's got 2 more in the next few months coming out. He's got Spies in Disguise, which is an animated film with Tom Holland, and then he's got Bad Boys for Life coming out early next year.
I feel like Bad Boys for Life.
We'll be getting some more Will Smith information later on.
A lot of built-up excitement for the next chapter of the Bad Boys.
Exactly. From some people, I think. I don't know. How many? We'll see. We'll find out. Looking at the rest of the top 5 very quickly, let's close that out. Abominable at number 4. It's approaching $50 million domestic. And then Downton Abbey hanging in there at number 5. People still going to see Downton Abbey. It's over $80 million now. People love that upstairs, downstairs intrigue. And a little bit of a sad farewell. There was another film that opened this weekend in wide release. Came in 9th place with $3.1 million. It's called Jexy. This is actually...
Look how happy he is.
This is actually a rather sad farewell for CBS Films. CBS Films is a mini major studio that it was announced earlier this year would cease producing theatrical films. It's being folded into the CBS family to make stuff for CBS
All Access.
All Access, yes. It had been active since 2010. They produced films like Seven Psychopaths, Hell or High Water, At Eternity's Gate. Those previous 2 were Oscar-nominated films. They were a distributor for films, including Patriots Day, Inside Llewyn Davis, The Woman in Black, which was a horror hit for Daniel Radcliffe. Kind of sad to see, not all of their movies. There were a lot of their movies, too, that were not so good. But they were investing in these sort of mid-budget films that it was good to see. And now they will no longer be producing films theatrically.
We're on the verge of an era where this is going to be happening so much. Now that all of these media companies are consolidating and they're all focusing on in-house productions for streaming services, there's going to be a lot, I think, of taking these companies that were making these one-off studio productions and consolidating them and like, you guys are going to feed HBO Max and you guys are going to feed CBS All Access. And so that we're seeing that across the industry.
Well, full disclosure, I saw Jexy this weekend.
Woo.
And
you were the one
going to choose to remember Hell or High Water. Yikes. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Seven Psychopaths, really good. So was At Eternity's Gate. I really like that
At Eternity, Willem Dafoe actor nomination. Yeah. So I hope that we're still able to find distributors and producers for those kinds of films, because the Oscars need movies that no one will go see.
Right.
Like At Eternity's Gate.
Well, I mean, like, if you think about it, because CBS and Showtime, it's the same company. So, I mean, that as a Showtime original might have made more sense. I
don't know.
You never know. I mean,
we'll see.
These are the kinds of decisions that these companies are making now.
We'll find out.
And then if CBS and Viacom end up merging, then Paramount's folded into this whole...
My brain's already... I don't even...
What are you going to do?
You're depressing me. Let's move on to the top 5 worldwide. As I mentioned, Joker didn't just hold well domestically. It held well internationally, just under $180 million. It has now crossed the $500 million mark. Gemini Man did not light the world on fire. Just over $50 million and it opened in most of its international markets. Now, big asterisk here. The next 2 weekends, it's got China and then Japan.
Sure.
So it's got a chance to make up some money. However,
and Ang Lee in China, big name.
Sure.
He's a very well-established filmmaker.
But with the underperformance everywhere else, it's really going to have to make up a lot of money because, as I mentioned, $138 million budget.
Yeah.
It's going to have to really do well in China and Japan to even approach,
Right.
A profitable theatrical run.
Because also, once it hits home video, VOD, streaming, Blu-ray, like that's it. The big appeal, the hook of the movie was the theatrical experience. So they can't count on making this up later.
You're going to make some money there, but
but that's not the showcase for this particular film.
The Captain and My People, My Country, 2 holdovers from China that are still in the top 5 there, and then The Addams Family there at number 4. That's based solely on its North American debut. So two from China, 1 just from the U.S. and then 2 international openers. We'll see next week how Gemini Man does in China, if it's bringing in some big numbers. Although, as you can see, it's already a crowded marketplace there. And there was a lot of box office activity in China. Can they get the audience out there to see Will Smith in an Ang Lee film? We'll find out next week. Now, usually the top per theater is an interesting part of the show, but not necessarily the one that drives a lot of charts. However, this was an exception because this was a busy, busy weekend at 3 theaters, 1 in New York, 2 in Los Angeles, because Bong Joon-ho's Parasite opened this weekend. Now, Lon, we talked about Parasite way back in May because it was a big hit in Bong Joon-ho's native country of South Korea. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. And as you can see, in 3 theaters, it averaged $128,000 per theater. I was reading a report. It sold out every showtime in New York. So there was a time this weekend, if you wanted to see Parasite in North America, you would have to fly to Los Angeles and go to one of the 2 theaters in Los Angeles.
Let me just say, it was very competitive in LA too. I thought on Saturday maybe I will try to go see it. On Sunday in the theater I wanted to go see was almost entirely sold out. So this was a very tough ticket to get this week.
I saw it this weekend. It was we were lucky to get tickets, but the theater was completely sold out, as were several other showings.
It's kind of a perfect storm. It's an incredibly well-reviewed movie that won maybe the biggest film festival of the year.
Yeah.
It's a celebrated director that film nerds already really love and already wanted to go see it sight unseen. And it's a movie that all of the reviews and all the press are saying, don't read anything. You want to go in fresh. You don't want to be spoiled on anything. So it's motivating people to go out right away so they don't. So they're one of the first people to see it and they don't get spoiled. So I think when all of those elements come together, people are going to rush out to go see it.
Well, they rushed out, at least on a per theater basis, more than any other movie this year because it has now taken the 2019 crown for the best per theater debut of the year, over $128,000. That easily topped by $40,000 The Farewell, which held the record. Then, as you can see, Avengers Endgame, massive hits, number 3, Late Night, and Echo in the Canyon, which is a music documentary. But Parasite easily topping this year for 2019. However, just to kind of put in perspective how well it did, these are the top 5 per theater averages since 2015. So in the last 4 years, almost 5, and it's number 3, La La Land, Steve Jobs, The Revenant, and The Favorite. Now, La La Land, The Revenant, The Favorite, big Oscar movies. Steve Jobs, not so much, but it drove some awards nominations, some awards consideration. So Parasite is getting the kind of opening and the kind of interest that you see for movies that are in awards contention. We mentioned again back in Malon, this could be a big movie to look at when we're looking at Best International Film of the Year. But there have been some. We talked about Almodovar's movie, All About My Mother, that have gone beyond into the writing categories.
Pain and Glory is the Almodovar this year.
Right, yes, but All About My Mother was the one that broke through and the writing categories and the directing categories. Perhaps Parasite could be one of those breakout hits.
I almost feel like Parasite could benefit from people being upset about Roma not getting more last year. And now that we're going to see every year international movies sort of making a push into the major categories, I think future international films may benefit from that people are going to be more open to nominations in some of the top categories.
Well, for my money, I liked Parasite much better than I liked Roma. So that's this guy's 2 cents. It was actually, when you look at the best per per theater openings of all time. It was the 17th best per theater opening of all time, and by far the best for a foreign language film.
Yeah.
So it's unprecedented for an international film, a foreign language film, to open as high per theater as Parasite did this weekend. Again, this is going to be a slow roller. It's going to go out. It's going to be a screener movie for a lot of folks. But, at this point, it would be shocking if we don't see it in the best international film race. Just based on its popularity and how high profile it is. But this could be the one this year. And I hate to usually have to say the one, but it usually is. It's A Life is Beautiful or The Postman or Roma or All About My Mother. This could be the international feature this year to look at, to say that could break out into more categories than just best international film.
Definitely.
So we'll keep an eye on Parasite, let you know how it's doing. And by the way, there will be a review. I'll be reviewing the film later this week right here on the channel. So stick around. We actually have a lot of reviews coming up with Jojo Rabbit as well.
Jaxie.
No. I gave you my review, which is that I'd prefer to remember Hell or High Water.
7 Psychopaths.
So there you go. Anyway, Parasite, huge opening this weekend. It'll continue to roll out slowly. I would highly recommend it. Spoiler alert for my review. But more on that later here on Fandom Entertainment. Lon, let's look at the 2019 domestic list. We have changes in both the domestic and the worldwide list. I'll give you a big guess on which movie was added. The Joker jumps in at number 8, jumping over Us, jumping over Hobbs and Shaw. John Wick Chapter 3 gets sniped out of the top 10. It's dropped. It's doing. It's just fine.
Next time, John.
Next time, John Wick. So it looks like, though, it's about 14. It looks like Joker's going to win the Psychotic Clown Domestic Olympics of 2019 because It Chapter 2 is the next film in its
Clown versus Clown.
Clown versus Clown. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to get up there to Aladdin. You never know, though. The way it's been performing, stranger things have happened. So Joker now a top 10 domestic hit. Also jumping onto the 2019 worldwide list. I mentioned that it had passed $500 million. That means that it is now the 10th highest grossing movie of the year worldwide, knocking out How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. It's looking up at The Wandering Earth from China. Joker now the 9th DC film to pass the $500 million mark worldwide. So
not bad for all the trash talk that studio gets. They're doing it. They're making it happen.
9th film. DC branded film, but those are mostly from Warner Brothers, if not all. So there you go.
They're all
a low budgeted film now making back 10 times its budget or more worldwide. Can't argue with a hit, Lon. You can't argue that the movie's a hit.
You go, Todd Phillips. Maybe we were wrong about all those horrible things you were saying before it came out.
Well, I think those are two separate issues, but let's move on. Lon, this is the highlight of the show for a lot of people. I'm talking, of course, about the countdown to Cats. We are a mere 68 days away, Lon.
So close.
Cats. We're just a cat hair under, a whisker under 2 months.
You can taste the catnip already.
Taste the catnip. I can smell it. I want to roll around in it on the floor. And as we have been doing for the last several weeks, we are taking the end of the show as an opportunity to introduce you to some of the cats. There's so many. And really, this is a primer for you to walk in and at least have some idea of what you're going to go see, what you're getting into. As we have been doing, first of all, let's recap the cats that we have met in the weeks previous. Of course, BUSTOPHER Jones, played by James Corden, the first cat that we met. What a fancy-looking cat that is.
Scary.
Sure. Next, we had Old Deuteronomy, played by Dame Judi Dench in the film. Next, we met MACAVITY, the mystery cat, played by Idris Elba in a fedora. So mysterious. We'll find out what's going on with that cat.
He wears a stringer bell on his collar.
JENNYANYDOTS to be played by Rebel Wilson. Look at that happy-looking cat.
She likes to tap dance.
Apparently so.
That's one of the things I remember from her description.
Loves to dance. Next up, we looked at Grizabella, a key cat in the cat's mythology.
Maybe the scariest cat of all.
The most terrifying cat of the new film, at least in the poorly rendered visions that we've seen from the trailers, to be played by Jennifer Hudson. And of course, how could we forget our next cat, Gus the theater cat, played by Ian McKellen. Just an adorable cat, really.
The role of his career.
The role of a lifetime for Sir Ian.
Finally, this guy is getting some opportunities.
And then last week, we met Rum Tum Tugger to be played by Jason Derulo.
great Shakespearean actor,
Yes,
Jason Derulo.
I wish that we had a picture of like the like hip hop streetwise Rum Tum Tugger that they did in the reboot, but alas, we do not. Lon, this week's cat, I from what I've read and from what I've researched, is a key cat in the cat mythology. Plays a critical role in Jellicle cat lore. I'm talking, of course, about Mr. Mistopheles, also known as Magic Mr. Mistopheles.
Oh.
Look at him. He's doing a spell there.
Wow. I don't even recognize. Who's that actor?
That actor is, hang on, I recognize him, and I'm just giving you a moment. His name is... It's later in my rundown.
Bruno
I have to
Mars?
scan.
Who's that?
No, his name is Laurie Davidson.
Okay.
And you perhaps may best know him as the actor who played young hip Shakespeare in the short-lived TNT show Will.
No, I don't.
No?
Shockingly, I don't remember the short-lived TNT series Will.
Well, he is playing Mr. Mistopheles.
Okay, so we don't recognize him because he's an up-and-coming.
Unknown, yes.
Okay.
Well, not unknown. He's an up-and-coming actor. Yes,
yeah.
He does not have a long resume. Certainly not as long as Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Judi Dench. I mean, how do you even compete with that?
This is our first sort of like a fresh-faced cat, as opposed to a reliable Hollywood star cat.
What he may lack in notoriety, he makes up with magic.
Oh no! So he does magic.
The magical Mr. Mistopheles is indeed magical. It is the most taxing dance role in the show because he is called upon to help conjure old Deuteronomy from the clutches of evil in the Jellicle's time of need. He is summoned by Rum Tum Tugger. It's still discovering the extent of his magical powers.
I don't think I knew that it had this much elaborate fate. Like, I thought it was taking place in our world.
Well, it may be.
But then I keep hearing about all this Narnia stuff.
Well, listen, it's our world, but there are cat actors, cat prostitutes, and some of them do magic.
Some of them they're cat sorcerers.
Exactly. He's a cat magician.
Sure.
Now, in some productions, Mr. Mistopheles is also known as Quaxo, and he's in disguise until his introductory song, but from Rum Tum Tugger, of course.
Yeah.
But in other cats, Quaxo is just a different character, and in others, he's just Mr. Mistopheles the whole time. He's magical, though. That's the important thing to remember.
Yes.
Mr. Mistopheles is magic.
Right.
He can perform magic and do magic. And he does in the show. I saw a wonderful clip from the Cats stage musical where he zaps things and the lights come on. It's very magical. He's the Harry Potter of the Cats universe.
And he's the leader of the mutant rebellion on Mars. Oh, no, that's Quato.
That's Quato. No, that's Quato, not Quaxo.
Sorry.
Mr. Mistopheles, much like the two cats that are in my apartment, is a tuxedo cat. The role was originated in London by Wayne Sleep. And as I mentioned, we played by Laurie Davidson, young Will Shakespeare himself. Now,
he's clearly like a stage actor, and he can nail the dancing. I bet you.
I'm sure that's probably
part of it. He's a Broadway guy.
It's a very taxing dance role.
Yeah,
from what I've read.
James Corden's not going to maybe be able to wow us with his, I guess he's a pretty good dancer.
But this is like a classical ballet dance role.
This guy's going to really sell the dancing.
Now, if you know the name Mr. Mistopheles, perhaps his most notorious recent incident was the reference in Team America World Police. If you'll remember, Mr. Mistopheles was the cat who traumatized the member of Team America, Chris, backstage during a regrettable backstage incident at a Cats performance.
Yes. Okay, now I remember.
An incident that also included Rumpleteazer and MACAVITY the Mystery Cat.
Clearly, Matt and Trey Cats fans.
Yes, that's where I'd heard the name Mr. Mistopheles.
Right.
Was in Team America. Unfortunately, that's a very negative connotation. I've only associated him with this horrendous assault.
He's named after the devil, right? Isn't Mephistopheles a name?
It's Mistopheles.
It's a play on the name for the devil.
I disagree with your assertion. He's magical, Lon. He's a magic cat.
He's Mr. Mistopheles, but I'm saying Mephistopheles is a different name. It's another name for saints, like Beelzebub or whatever.
Right.
So it's obviously was influential.
I don't know.
I'm saying this cat is in line with the devil, you guys.
Well, he does magic, so that's very possible.
That's what's powering his magic. Satan.
I was told that many people thought that about Harry Potter too, and he was just all right with everyone else. So Don't think of him as the devil. He's a magical cat. He does magic and he's here to help.
Yeah, who's potentially in league with the devil. That's
Well, maybe not. But we'll find out when Cats opens in 68 days.
And find out.
Anyway, despite Lon's slander of Mr. Mistopheles,
just pointing out the etymology.
You can catch Mr. Mistopheles when Cats opens in December. I can't wait. But this week we've got some releases to get out of the way before Cats opens. Kind of a busy weekend, actually.
Yeah.
Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, new big Disney release. There will be a review for that film here on Fandom Entertainment tomorrow, so check that out.
Yeah.
Zombieland 2 Double Tap coming out this week.
Yeah.
10 years after the original. We got another one coming out. I don't think I'm going to get a chance to review it, but I am going to see it. So I'll tweet out something.
I'm curious to check it out. I like the idea of like the Seinfeld, like they meet their exact doubles.
Yeah.
That's always a fun bit.
This Wednesday, Kevin Smith doing the Fathom event for Jay and Silent Bob
right.
reboot. So if you like the View Askew universe, we got the new Jay and Silent Bob movie coming out.
I was at LA Comic-Con over the weekend, and on the floor they had a life-size replica of the Quick Stop, and
wow.
he and Kevin and Jason Mewes were hanging out taking pictures in front of it. And I really reflected on Clerks went from this incredibly low-budget black and white handmade movie with this guy and his like amateur friends, and now it's an installation at LA Comic-Con, like this huge. It was the centerpiece of the whole thing.
Probably cost as much as the original film did to make.
Yeah, it's crazy how that exploded and became like a huge pop culture artifact.
Well, that is opening in a special Fathom event on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing
friend of Screen Junkies.
Sure, great guy.
And then several movies opening in limited release, but two that I did want to mention. Number one, Jojo Rabbit from Taika Waititi. That's had a lot of buzz going in.
Yes.
You can catch a review of that film later this week here on Fandom Entertainment. Wow. And then a movie that I'm excited to see and won't have a chance to see. I'll be gone this weekend, but I'm hoping to catch up with it as soon as I can. From A24, The Lighthouse. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson alone together in a lighthouse.
It's the new one from The Witch
the director of The Witch. I'm excited for that
I can't
because
wait.
it looks like the most A24 thing ever. It's in like 4:3, black and white, super weird.
Yeah. I feel like I could watch 20 movies of Willem Dafoe yelling in old-timey English. Just he's got such a way with that kind of language, and I can't wait. It looks great.
So a busy week at the box office, Lon. Thank you for joining me. Anything you want to plug before we go?
No, just follow me on Twitter at LONS. I'm easy to find.
Awesome. And stay tuned here to Fandom Entertainment, not just for SJU, but like I said, we'll be reviewing several movies in the next couple weeks, and then probably even more as we get to the end of the year, because they're starting to come out Fast and Furious, except for the Fast and the Furious, which came out earlier this year. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.